Hey, what's going on? It's July 31st, 2026. Just trying to make this on July 30th because that's when I watched Spider-Man Brand New Day. But today I wanted to talk about Spider-Man Brand New Day. So, in preparation for this movie, I watched all of the Spider-Mens leading up to this movie. So that would include, well, I started with the Tom Holland movies, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and then switched over to the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, and then moved on to Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield, and came back to No Way Home, which was a real... I really enjoyed watching it that way because it sort of kicked off the Tom Holland MCU Spider-Man and then pulled in a little bit of context for the buildup that is No Way Home, and those timelines all kind of converge just before wrapping up that whole arc and then moving on to the next phase of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. So watching this movie with that context was really fun because I felt like I was living in the universe of Spider-Man. There are little details and nods to the other movies that I observed that I wouldn't have picked up on and felt the substance of in this movie if I hadn't had watched all of those movies leading up to Spider-Man Brand New Day. So I enjoyed this movie. It wasn't my favorite Spider-Man movie. There are things about the movie that really worked and things about it that didn't. But all in all, I walked away from this movie feeling like it was a collection of good and bad things, good and bad moments, which to me isn't a story. It's just a collection of things happening within a certain span of time, but they don't all necessarily tie into a cohesive story. Now, I think that there were several subplots happening throughout this movie that sort of, in their own way, served the ultimate purpose of this movie, which kind of felt like, in the end, was just to build this new Spider team of Spider-Man and, I guess, spoiler alert, Jean Grey. Because Jean Grey is in this movie, and halfway or more than halfway through the movie, it basically becomes the Jean Grey movie, which is it was a good movie, but it stopped feeling like a Spider-Man movie at a certain point, and I think that's just because I have been on this Spider-Man, history lesson. Or history marathon, and now all of a sudden we're switching into MCU mode, and it feels like the MCU-ness of the movie crept in at certain times, and then by the end of it we were in full-fledged, this is a movie setting up the next Avengers movie mode. And that's not a bad movie, but I had enjoyed watching all of these Spider-Man movies up to this point that I was looking forward to watching another Spider-Man movie. And these days with the MCU, you're never just watching a superhero movie anymore. You're watching some stepping stone to the next thing. We can't just live in the joy of the movie we're watching anymore. It's always got to be who's that character and who's that guy and what's this IP and that thing. Like one of the things that stuck out to me the most about this movie was the use of some of the new Marvel IP they've acquired in recent years that kind of feels like they've been trying to find something to do with them, and now they finally found a movie that they can slide them into. But the characters themselves don't really feel like they carry any significant, or they provide any significant contribution to pushing the plot of the movie forward. They kind of just come in for the sake of using them as many times as they're contracted to be used in this movie. I knew that John Bernthal was going to be in this movie, for example, because I had seen the trailers. And the way that I watch movies nowadays is I try to stay away from as much news, as much social media trailers as possible, except for the very first trailer that comes out, which is typically like, maybe it's not the first one because I, I don't know if I count sneak peek or teasers. Maybe I'll count teasers. Okay, maybe it's the teaser and the first trailer. I will watch those and then I'll stay away from any sort of news ever. And I feel like that's the best way, at least for me, to watch movies because I'm the type of person that would just absorb all of these theories and discussions going on. And it pulls me away too much from the entertainment of the art itself. So I just try to go in blind. That's how I enjoy them the most. But I did see a trailer that showed John Bernthal as the Punisher, and he's just there. Like there is no. His introduction in the trailer is the same introduction that we get in the movie. He just pops up, and maybe I'm missing something because I do know that there is a 1 hour special of the Punisher that recently came out. So maybe there's some connection to Spider-Man in that I'm not seeing. But even beyond that initial encounter, whenever he showed up, it was it felt like we were tagging in the MCU partner of the act or of the scene, and then moving on to the next MCU partner, which ended up being Jean Grey later on. And it only felt that way because I purposely made an effort to rewatch Daredevil because I saw the Hand in the trailer, also the ninja group. I watched Daredevil seasons 1 and 2 of the first series, and then I tried to catch up on Punisher, but I only made it through the first season, so kind of had a baseline for who these characters were. And then we see them finally make their appearance. Come on, up. See them finally make their appearance in the MCU for the first time, and they're very MCU-ified, constantly cracking jokes, super quick-witted responses to everything, like nothing serious anymore. That's what happens when you get into the MCU. You make light of serious situations every 15 to 20 minutes to remind you that everything's okay, everything's gonna be fine, our heroes got it covered, because they're super comfortable in this situation. But anyway, now the Punisher comes in, he's doing the same thing, but that's not how the Punisher was written in the TV show, which I guess you could argue is, an adaptation of the Punisher, the MCU's adaptation of the Punisher, but it's just a weird argument because it's almost like you're talking about the Punisher adapting himself, because that Punisher is already an adaptation of the comic book character. And now you're adapting that adaptation for the MCU, and the end result is, to write him the same as everyone else, where it's just joke, 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 everything's a joke. And then, there were other things, we see a little bit of personal effects in his home, where we end up later on in the movie pictures of his family, and he's all protective of it. Fine, that's very Punisher-esque. But there's another part where Zendaya, MJ later is interacting with the Punisher, and they're talking about stuff in his home, and they're both like, "Oh, they're for bombs." But I had just watched Punisher season 1, and he makes a big scene about hating bombs. I know that's sort of like a nitpicky detail, but I don't know. You're just using the character. You're not utilizing the character. I don't know if there's a distinction between the two words that I just used. But anyway, that's a very long... All of that to say that there were cool new characters that came in that just felt like they were getting screen time because that's what they're supposed to do at this point. Not because they served an actual purpose to carrying the plot of the movie forward. Now, the actual plot of the movie, I believe, is Peter Parker is several 4 years in. I want to say he's 4 years into being Spider-Man on his own. In the previous movie, No Way Home, he he took on the Sinister Six basically, but a new version of the Sinister Six where he ends up helping them. Um, Great. That's one of my favorite Spider-Man movies. It's one of the only Blu-rays that I own, uh, and just rewatched it last night, and that movie never gets old. And I remember I was watching it and just like feeling happy that I was born in the time where all of those movies are just relevant enough for No Way Home to hit the way that it did. You're never gonna have a movie like that ever again, and it was so cool to be able to experience that. I don't know, it's just a cool thing. It's the whole build up to it and watching the movie and having everything come together and it being a good movie, like a good superhero movie. It's just so cool that I get to watch that and own something like that. And so okay, so Peter Parker is learning how to be Spider-Man on his own, and his body starts going through changes. He doesn't quite understand, but like in the same way where a human being goes through some significant life change, a move, or a divorce or something, your body goes through stress, fatigue, all of these different things. But for Peter, because he's an enhanced individual, he has superhuman powers. They're manifested superhumanly. Like his senses are heightened. He starts developing the ability to shoot organic web fluid, all things that he wasn't able to do before. But it's like his powers are evolving into another phase of his ability, and so he's trying to navigate all of this. And coincidentally, well, not coincidentally, he throughout this whole time he sort of has become like uh, um, he's really started to embody your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Like he is that superhero now. He's not tied to the Avengers the way that he was before. He still has tech, but the more that I paid attention to it throughout the movie, the more it looked like late '90s, early 2000s tech. So he's developing it on his own, but it's still crude. It's still he's having to be clever about how he invents these things and be resourceful. So that was kind of cool to see. um, and so he's patrolling one day, and he encounters a criminal that's driving a tank, and it turns out that the person driving this tank is just a regular old woman. But Spider-Man finds, as he engages with this woman, that the consciousness of this person is jumping to different people. And so we find that he's encountered his new adversary in this movie, somebody who, excuse me, can occupy the minds of other people, and then they try to occupy Peter's mind, but his spider sense, it seems, is somehow able to battle it away, and so the movie progresses, and then we find that this person who Peter still doesn't know who they are threatens MJ. They find out somehow that she means something to Peter, and so now she's in the crosshairs of whoever this person is, and Peter, he reveals himself to her, or like he shows up at his apartment and kind of convinces her to come with him so that he can protect her, and in doing so they sort of start to unravel the thread of their relationship, that hasn't been connected for all these years. And it was these were some of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. Any scene with Peter, MJ, and or Ned together, they have such good chemistry, and I think they've really built a great relationship over the course of these past three movies, and it was really like um, it was really uh, emotional and a journey to see them grow into these adult roles and get older, and just seeing life move on after No Way Home. It was an odd feeling because it was such a scary cliff that we were standing over at the end of that movie. Peter's alone, everyone's forgotten about him, and now just kind of processing this new reality of no one knowing him, and um, Peter experiencing it for the first time instead of being an observer into their lives. and and there are several moments throughout this their interactions with each other that are very touching because they don't remember him. I do appreciate that the story doesn't cut corners with the spell. It doesn't try to undo the effects of the spell and all of a sudden allow them to remember Peter and everything is happy and magical again. That doesn't happen. It didn't work. But they have enough of a bond that they've developed where Ned and MJ are just naturally drawn to Spider-Man for reasons that they don't quite understand. They know that they've had interactions with him in the past because of Homecoming where Spider-Man rescued them, and so that those movies kind of really laid the groundwork for the relationship that they develop with Spider-Man. And so um, now that he's reappeared into their lives, they're really sort of like paying attention to this feeling that they've always had about him. And even Ned has been trying to find out who Spider-Man is all of these years, and it's really interesting. He has this wall of pictures, sort of like an investigation wall, and he's narrowed it down to Flash and their teacher, I think, which are actually pretty good guesses if you think about it. He's getting pretty close in the what's it called? He's like 1 degree of separation away from Peter Parker, which is pretty impressive. And MJ, there's a moment where the two of them are sort of having this conversation between a veil, and they're not looking at each other; they're just speaking to each other, and the conversation just flows effortlessly. Peter's smiling and laughing like you haven't seen him smile and laugh this entire movie. He's been uptight and stressed and really trying to do his job, and now for the first time he's relaxed and he's letting his guard down. Um, and and then there's a super awesome fight with the Hulk. It's we've been overdue for a good Hulk fight. I we did get the Red Hulk in Brave New World, but again that one felt very gimmicky and disappointing because I've been looking forward to the Red Hulk for a long time. He's such a, a fascinating and elusive and mysterious character and threatening. That I felt like he deserved a really cool portrayal in the MCU, but they sort of just like flashed him out like he was their new bright shiny object and cut straight to the chase of revealing who the Red Hulk is, which is a big component of the mystique of the Red Hulk. But whatever. But at least we get a Hulk fight in this movie, and that was cool to see Spider-Man go up against the Hulk, because Spider-Man is strong, he's crafty, he's witty, and he's getting better with every movie. He's getting smarter and more experienced. Like there's a moment where Jean Grey, she's still in opposition to Spider-Man and occupies Zendaya's mind for a brief second, and then walks her off of a roof because she's like threatening Spider-Man. And then Spider-Man catches her, and we all know from the previous Spider-Man the iconic Andrew Garfield scene where he can't get to Gwen Stacy in time, and then she dies, and then how he gets his redemption in No Way Home, and even has learned from that previous experience where he when he tried to rescue Gwen, he shot the web at her, and then in No Way Home, he pulled himself to Zendaya to protect her from the force of falling and then landed. And then when Tom Holland goes after MJ in this movie, he does all of those things too. He pulls himself to MJ, he grabs her, and then he turns so that he'll land on the ground instead of her. But one thing that he adds is last second he spins his body so that the force isn't just going directly into the concrete, it's rotating off to the side. So little things like that were cool to see. We also got a couple of POV shots of Spider-Man where he's swinging and shooting webs. That's a very amazing Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield type of camera work and style. And then we also obviously got organic web fluid the same way that Tobey Maguire does, and he also, his spider sense, I noticed the movements as he evolved started to seem similar to Tobey Maguire's as well. Yeah, so Spider-Man fights the Hulk, and I don't want to talk too much about that, but it was a really cool scene. I want to get back to Spider-Man and MJ. When he reconvenes with her, she approaches him because she's found a note where he confesses to MJ who he really is and that they knew each other. This is something that he's been wrestling with for years, how to tell her, if to tell her, and now she's found out on her own, and he has to explain himself to her. So he does. He takes off his mask. He reveals who he is to her. He confesses his love to her. It's very heartbreaking. You can tell that he's not like his life is very hard. The life of Spider-Man is very isolating and physically and mentally demanding, and he has nobody. It's just him, and he's very vulnerable about that feeling in this moment. And MJ, you could tell, like, she doesn't remember, but she's still MJ, so she still has a very MJ response to him where she recognizes how much of a depressed state he's in, and she tries to console him because she doesn't remember, but she's still a kind person, she's still a caring person, but she's very honest, and she says, whatever you did worked. I don't remember you, I don't even know who you are. And Tom Holland has this like really amazing performance in this scene where you just see he's a very expressive actor. Especially like the scene at the end of No Way Home, where he's sort of like, you can see in his eyes, he's deciding whether or not he's going to tell Zendaya who he is. And then here again we see his facial expressions sort of go through all the motions of realizing, this is, she's gone. The Zendaya, the MJ that I knew is no. Okay, my last battery died, and this one is only like 20% less. So I gotta wrap this up pretty soon. But yeah, that scene was very captivating, where Peter Parker is confessing his love and how much he misses Zendaya or MJ, and she just can't return it. She obviously cares about him, and she can't stop thinking about him because now she knows that she's had this history with him that she can't remember. And she's a very curious person, she's a very bright person, just like Peter. And throughout the movie, this information sits with her, and she returns back to it. But after the sort of moment where Peter has to accept that she's gone, which is, I wanted to say, it's very heartbreaking because it's almost worse than her being dead. She's, if she was dead, then he would have still had the memory of MJ would have lived on in her. But now, even that memory is almost, it's like it's gone because there's a new MJ. I mean, it's very layered. It's a lot to take in, and it's a lot to take in while you're simultaneously trying to be Spider-Man and still like save the city and do all these things. So, um, yeah, I think the heavy scenes and the emotional scenes were carried very, very well by the performances of Tom Holland, Zendaya, and gosh, I don't know Ned's name, his real name, but they were also good together. Um, and then the third act of the movie involves more John Bernthal versus Jean Grey and Spider-Man, and then eventually Jean Grey and Spider-Man, they become friends, and they work things out, and they become a team, and it was all good, but it's just, she's a cool character, and she's a great actor. I think she did a great performance with what was given to her, but it's just such a short amount of time to expect the audience um, to care about this character. I mean, we do care about the character, but we don't know the character the same way that we know Tom Holland, and the stakes are just as high for the both of them. And I get you only have so much time and you have so many characters that you've got to get through, and maybe that just is how they have to get through them from now on in order to get through all of them. But you can't have everything, right? You can't have all the characters and tell all of their stories um, with substance, um, and and tell it with enough time so that your audience doesn't get too old or far away from the. I mean, it's a huge balancing act. I understand, but it's just a bummer that we don't get to sit with these characters for longer before we're expected to care about what happens to them. All that to say, though, I think the consistency of the levels of performance of the actors in the cast of the Marvel universe is a huge asset to the MCU because regardless of the odd direction of the plots or whatever happens, I still am with the characters for a good bit of it because of the performance alone. So you got to give it to the actors for constantly bringing their A game. And I wanted to talk more about all of the other Spider-Man. I had so many thoughts. It was so fun watching them again. I had forgotten how good Tobey Maguire movies were. So good. They feel like real movies. They feel like they're made by a film and a crew that woke up that day and set up all of their equipment and their gear, and the camera work is fun and interesting and different, and the opening and ending credits of all of those movies is very comic booky, and Willem Dafoe's performance as the Green Goblin is consistently good and better on every rewatch, and super fun to see when it finally crosses over to the MCU. So all those Spider-Men were fun to watch, and it's also fun being in a new era of another Spider-Man. It's crazy that we've had 3 generations of Spider-Man and they're still going strong. And I don't see it like after Tom Holland is Spider-Man, they're not gonna stop making Spider-Man. Imagine no Spider-Man for 20 years. It'd be weird. I think it would happen. I think the same way that James Bond went on forever, I think we're gonna have Spider-Man forever. I think we're gonna have Batman forever. At least until something radically changes, but I don't see something radically changing about the existence of a Spider-Man or a Batman in film. But anyway, Spider-Man Brand New Day was a good movie. I wonder if I should come up with like a ranking system. It was good. It was good. I enjoyed it. I'll watch it again. I like Marvel movies. This was a fun Marvel movie. But anyways, yeah. All right. Thanks for watching.